G'day and welcome to Reliability Hero, where we talk with maintenance and reliability people. Few things excite them more than making machines and equipment do more than they were ever designed to do. Faster, safer, longer, and more reliably. Whether you take minerals out of the ground, keep power plants running, or fix and maintain rail networks, aeroplanes, conveyor belts, or turbines, we acknowledge you for keeping economies moving. I'm Andrew Daddo, and this podcast is brought to you by the mainstream community. And I'm with Dr. John L. Ross Jr. I love that thing about Americans, you have the junior or the...
Well, I don't want my dad getting asked questions.
Yeah, Dad! Now, you've been a practitioner of maintenance and reliability for over 30 years, a former captain in the Air Force in America, a distinguished graduate of the Aircraft Maintenance Officer School and the Squadron Officer School, and now running your own business, American Reliability and Maintenance Institute. Is that a fair assessment? I know there's a lot more, but...
Sure. Well, that's actually my second company. My primary company is Maintenance Innovators. That's the company I started 17 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've been around for a while.
All right. You've also authored 3 books.
That's right.
We'll get to those. Why don't we start with that whole notion of leadership and the change in leadership. So in sports and in business as well, there's a sort of thought, well, why don't we just change the coach, right?
That's right.
Change the coach and all will be solved. It doesn't actually work that way.
No, in fact, I come across this quite a bit when I'm consulting, working in companies, because in maintenance and reliability, it's really the fundamentals. There's not a lot of new creation. It's maybe repackaging stuff and saying it in a way that somebody, I get it now because you said it differently. I had an old boss, an old mentor, if you will, that told me, he said, John, in order for anything to grow, let's say you want to grow an apple tree, you have to have the right seed. So you have to have an apple seed, obviously. Mm-hmm. Now that seed has to be planted at a certain depth. For that tree, it has to be a certain depth. You have to have the right nutrients in the soil. You have to have the right amount of sunshine and rain for that to grow.
Yep.
And my old mentor said, now, John, what are the odds of getting all that right the first time? So I come across a lot of companies saying, we've tried that before, it didn't work. Understandably, we tried it before because it's a fundamental.
Yeah.
What you might need is the right seed. Maybe the nutrition's not there in the soil. A leader could bring in the nutrients and grow the people, if you will.
Okay.
Sunshine and rain. You've got to change something. If it's not working, maybe you don't have the right seed, right nutrients, right sunshine, right amount of rain.
It does make me wonder, just initially anyway, that I think it's a great analogy, but how often do things work when the seed's not put at the right depth? You sort of go, because that's what happens with when things start to go wrong.
That's right.
It's to go, just chuck it in, mate.
Yeah.
Look, I know we're using this fertilizer, but no, I can actually get this one. It works real good as well.
Yeah, sure. But you actually just uncovered a lot of stuff here. There's the old biblical story of just casting the seeds about. Some falls on rocky ground, some falls on the path, some falls in the good soil. But also, it's when someone does figure out the recipe, if you will, that, hey, this, in order to grow an apple orchard, you need to have this. Are we learning from that? Hey, somebody else already invented that. Let's go to a conference like we have here at Mainstream. Let's go find out some ideas. Let's take those back, because it's a fresh approach. It's a different way of looking at a fundamental, but take this information, go back and see if it's relevant for your organization, and if it is, how can we make that happen? And it takes a leader to say, this is a best practice that's relevant to our organization. Let us figure out together how we're going to make that happen. How
important is the change in voice, and just the fact that you've got a different voice telling you to do the same thing in possibly the same way?
Yeah, I've lived through the transition where the maintenance manager was the biggest, baddest guy in the maintenance department. It was always the big guy.
Is he like a captain in a cop show?
Well, I was going to say like a prison yard.
Okay.
And it transitioned into inclusion and those kinds of discussions. I think it's very important because the people we have working in our factories and manufacturing now and around in maintenance and reliability, they're different than they were in the 1970s and 80s. I started in the 1980s, and it was not uncommon to have a technician that couldn't read, didn't have a high school education. They're hardworking. There's great people for sure. And then you roll in with computers. I brought the first Commodore 64 into my workplace, right?
Right.
And
how did that go?
Well, it was a bunch of farm boys. They thought as soon as you hit enter on that computer keyboard, you were going to launch an intercontinental ballistic missile from some silo in Montana.
Yeah, and you're from the Air Force as well, so.
Yeah, so it's a different voice where you can relate to. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not talking about coddling people, not holding people accountable. It's more of a voice of reason and inclusion, and that's something I find engaging the workforce. So you have to have the right mindset. And Andrew, if you go back, we're not really building leadership in our technical managers. We're building managers. We're the time management, people management, materials management, schedule management. We need to start honing in on the leadership skills, which is that where you ask people what they think and you include them in the decisions that are being made. Now, make no mistake, I'm the boss. I'm going to make the decision, but I want input from everybody, and let's consider what our options are and play this out a couple of iterations to see where we're going with it.
Okay. Do you remember when that changed? When workers had a not accountability, but had a say in their own accountability?
I think I recall my moment specifically when my boss brought us all into the room. He was the new boss. He said, "We're going to make decisions in this room. I'm going to ask your opinion, and you're going to have one."
Way.
Yeah, and of course we're all looking at this guy'd been boss for 27 minutes.
Yeah.
We're looking at each other like, holy heck, this guy's going to hold us accountable. What he was saying was, I don't need you to have the idea, but I need you to have an idea.
Right.
Because I'm going to ask you. So when you're out working with your people, understand what the problems, the issues are, understand what the opportunities are. Bring those into this conference room, because we're going to make a decision in this room, and that is the decision of this organization. Right? So when you hit the door, you don't get to tell your technicians, hey, guess what the old man's making us do? No,
right.
No. Here's what we're doing.
Okay. Even though that decision may have been organised and formed prior.
Yeah.
So is it about making your workers feel as if they are part of the decision, even though you may have already decided as senior management?
Well, that's what the boss was saying. Come to the meeting with a sense of what's going on, know what your people are doing. And I found that morale is one of those words that's hard to really define. If you had to define what morale means, you probably couldn't do it. But from an old colleague, he said, John, to me, morale is I have a sense that I am valued and I am valuable. And I said, okay, how do you make someone sincerely know that they're valued and valuable? He said, you ask them what they think. If the person's doing the job, digging a ditch, for example, why wouldn't we ask them about the best way to dig a ditch?
Yeah.
And then take that into the conference room and say, I got a great idea. Let's make sure we've got the best tools and the best know-how.
So, as you say, 17 years in the industry, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Because
well, 39 years in the industry, but 17 years as a business owner.
Sorry, I was laughing at the yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's the old military.
It's that fabulous military thing, you know?
Wow.
So, okay, 39 years.
Yes, sir.
Are we getting better at actually doing that? Because I know, there's still, and my business is not in reliability or maintenance, but there's still that thing of you don't get reviewed, or your reviews are, how'd you feel? Good, right, good. They're still not good at doing it, at letting you know how you worked or what your thoughts are. But are we getting better at that?
I think we are. Let me tell you how I know that. Because now when I go into an organization to consult or do some training, if you've got the old school maintenance leader, it sticks out like a sore thumb. It's almost like it discovered a dinosaur still alive. And it just rubs the wrong way, and it doesn't feel like you're getting the, I'm avoiding using the word synergy because we killed that in the 1980s and 1990s, but you're not getting the complete thought process of everybody. Let me give you an example. For what you do, Andrew, what you do, I'm going to concede that you're smarter at what you do than I am at what you do. But you won't ever be more smarter or capable than you and me together, right?
Oh, I love it.
And so that's the power. Now, again, if you're someone, well, no, but look, it's not just asking a bunch of dumb people what they think. You have to educate your people, resource your people, and make sure that what they're bringing to the table is the best thought. You can't just hold a bunch of people in the dark and then ask them what they think and expect they're coming up with brilliant ideas. They need to understand how the business works, a complete and a comprehensive understanding of how everything works, how the budget works, how the process works. And then you engage them and ask them what they think.
But should everyone know all those details?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're not fogging people's brains up with, I know you're working over here on the left side of the business, and there's a whole right side and a centre and everything, but everyone should have an understanding of everything so they know where they're...
Yeah, well, the Society for Maintenance and Reliability Professionals says that if you can influence a process, good or bad, you are required to have a comprehensive understanding. So let's say, for example, someone in accounting or someone in HR or safety, they can certainly influence the process of what we do. Shouldn't they have a comprehensive understanding?
Yeah.
Before they can sit down at the table?
I think one of the sessions at the maintenance conference this year is about using data, but changing it from data trying to sell an idea to using a narrative to sell the idea, because the data gets it's going to cost this, but we're not going to do it. But if you can actually give a reason, this is a really boiled down version of what the session is. If you can tell a story about the reason that things need to change, as opposed to saying we need the money for this, but make them understand in an emotional and an emotive sense, you've got a better chance of actually getting that through. Yeah, well, you bring up a great point. You're taking data, turning it into information, because nobody can interpret a table of numbers. When you're posting a metric or a KPI, you ought to be able to explain to everyone what it's measuring, where the numerator and the denominator come from, and then how you have to be able to explain to your people what they can do to affect the outcome of that metric, how to move the needle up or down. Because if you're relying on them to figure it out for themselves, you're wasting a lot of time, and they may or may not know that, and there's frustration. I'm going to explain the math to you, where the numbers come from, and what you can do to move the needle. And I'm going to hold you accountable and resource you for success, but hold you accountable to make that happen. Isn't that really what we're trying to do? Yeah. Here's how you're being measured, and here's how you control that value. So mainstream, I think, in an overarching way, does that. Yes. But across the board. That's right. Like there's however many sessions there are lots of different ways to do that. Why do you think more businesses aren't more interested in being part of this, when it's a really simple and straightforward way to change things in a positive way? What do you think is holding companies back? Well, I think as far as maintenance and reliability goes, I think the most traditional look at maintenance, if you will, the cost of maintenance, it sees it as an expense. It's in the profit and loss. It's not an asset. It's an expense. Worst case, we're a liability down on the balance sheet. We're not an asset. We're seen as a liability, especially if maintenance, you have breakdowns and a lot of downtime. You're not seen as an asset helping the company. You're seen as a liability or an expense. I think, and I think there's a few presentations on it this week, seeing maintenance as a profit, part of the profit model. But surely it is. Well, of course it is. I'm in the business, and I have to write proposals, so it's a real benefit for you to hire me. And let me tell you how much it's going to cost. But I'll give you an example. Your car, if you have a brand new car, Subaru, for example, you gas that thing up, and you just started heading west, and you could drive as far as you could drive till you run out of gas. Right, so the limiting is the gas. 787 Ks. As a business owner, you've got to understand what the limitations are of your equipment, because you could start up a brand new piece of equipment and run it for a certain length of time before you suffer the consequences. It's a risk, probability times the consequences. But there has to be a maintenance person that's there to fill the gas tank up. Yeah. There has to be a maintenance person to rotate the tires. There has to be a maintenance person to bring the gas to the gas station and maintain the equipment that builds the tire. I think a lot of people don't see it as an investment. My first boss in the civilian world, a guy named Mike Crisp, he was a real encourager to go to conferences. He said, and take someone with you. And I said, really? He said, yeah, take your maintenance manager. I was a plant engineer. Take your storeroom manager. Go to the conference, the little presentations. Have discussions around the bar at night or when you're out to eat dinner, because you guys are going to come back fired up and excited about not doing something different, but doing something differently. Again, it's fundamentals. It's the same stuff, but you're going to do it differently because you saw something that fired you up. You saw something that motivated you. It's a real investment to come to these conferences. So, yes, I mean, obviously I can see that, but something I always wonder about is someone comes to a conference, they get fired up and excited, and they've heard new ways and new things and new ideas, and they go back to the workplace where no one else from the workplace actually made it to the conference. And they walk through the door and they go, they've had a whole hallelujah moment like this, and they go, no, mate. No, it's not how we do it, mate. I teach a lot of classes in Las Vegas just because it's a place that can hold a lot of conference space.
And I tell my class, hey, when you go back to work on Monday, people are going to think that you've been on vacation. And let's face it, you've been in Las Vegas all week. There's some people here that I've already met at the conference that came here into Melbourne and Australia from different places. And their coworkers are going to think they were on, you were in Australia.
Yeah.
How hard was it? How hard did you have it? But it's absolutely right. We don't see that as the investment. But you have to go out and look. We're not going to get any smarter and more capable hanging around the water cooler bitching about things at work. You got to go out and understand what else is available and opportunities and carry that message back, and let's learn from that. It's a real investment.
Okay. It's funny you say that about going on a holiday. There was a guy in the lift yesterday, and how you going? And he goes, I'm exhausted. I'm like, oh. So I assumed he'd been out. I assumed he'd, been. And he, I said, well, mate, what do you mean? And he'd been to the water treatment plant, and he's building there's one here in Melbourne, and it's next level, and he's building one in Darwin. Okay. So he was absolutely exhausted by this day at the sucking up information. So that's it looks like a holiday to others, but it most certainly is not. Let me ask you one last thing.
Yes.
It's about your storeroom roadmap. So 32 processes for efficiency and sustainability. You put these together. It's really a step-by-step manual of things of a plan to follow.
That's right.
When you put them together and put it out into the marketplace, how confident are you that people will follow it to what you're suggesting or innovate on what you're suggesting?
Yeah. I appreciate the question. This is my third book. This is the book I wanted to write. My first two kind of
story that had to be told.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Years and years ago, a colleague asked me, and I'm embarrassed to say that I hadn't already thought about this. He said to me, John, there's 32 storeroom processes and practices, right? And I said, yeah, that's about right, 32. And he goes, is there an order in which someone should execute those? And I said, what are you talking about? Again, I'm embarrassed to say it now. He said, are there some that make you more effective and some that make you more efficient? And I thought, well, that's true. You want to be effective before you're efficient, or you become really efficient at being ineffective. And he said,
sorry, say that again.
You want to be effective and then efficient, or else you become efficient at being ineffective. Right?
Yeah, great.
I get people that want to go to in the storeroom when I do a lot of storeroom work. John, we'd like to adopt barcoding. And I'm like, barcoding is not going to help you if you can't master pencil and paper. You're not going to be world class if you can't hang up a broom, right? Let's just face that. And my colleague went on to say, and all there are things that you should start out like foundational. You should have these before you move on to the intermediate ones, before you get on to the advanced ones. And I thought, I've never thought about that. So I created this roadmap, which is like a roadmap for the old fold-out road maps in the 1970s. If you want to get here, follow this path, do this right here, and you do them in this sequential order, and you'll be successful. Now, not so much people are starting storerooms from scratch anymore. You've got a storeroom that's not running like it should. This roadmap shows you exactly where you are, and you know what? We should have turned left at the Grand Canyon, but we ended up turning right. No wonder we ended up in the wrong location. And I was reading of course, I read the book recently. It just came out about 3 weeks ago. Now people go, you just read it? And I said, well, I haven't read it in book form. I haven't read it in book form. I wrote the thing. But,
yeah.
And I was exclaiming to my wife, damn, this is really good. And she goes, what? And I said, I'm sorry. I'm reading it. I'm like, I actually wrote this? But it really does explain all of these processes, how they're connected, which one you should do next, what it actually means, translate a lot of technical stuff from other, and by the way, some of the speakers here I'm quoting in the book because they have fantastic products out there as well. But we've got to get our storeroom straight. We just have to. It's the third rail. I don't know if you know what the third rail is when I say third rail.
It sounds like something from a sci-fi film.
Well, it's in the subway trains in the U.S. They're run by electric rail. It's the third rail. The train runs on two rails. It picks up the power from the third rail.
Oh, okay.
So if it's something nobody wants to touch, we call it the third rail.
Okay.
Nobody wants to touch the storeroom because procurement doesn't know what they're doing and maintenance doesn't know what they're doing. And as a result, we get all screwed up. And I'm sure the pandemic caused a lot of angst with supply chain management. And we found out, we knew we weren't very good. We didn't realize we were this bad.
Right.
So I'm on a crusade, if you will, to get storerooms figured out. Okay. And we're going to make it happen.
All right. Well, the new book is The Storeroom Roadmap, 32 Processes for Efficiency and Sustainability. John Ross, or Dr. John L. Ross Jr., it's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
It's been great. Thanks for tuning in to Reliability Hero. Keep the world running, and we'll catch you next time. This podcast was brought to you by the Mainstream community.